Federal Workforce Fallout is sponsored by Prince George's Community College.
You're watching Federal Workforce Fallout, where each week we break down the impacts to our neighbors in the federal workforce. I'm Larry Miller. I want to introduce you to two people. These two here spent decades in federal service. It really was a part of their identity, serving the American people. So when these two were abruptly fired, they had to make a shift and do so quickly. We begin our episode this week with Dr. Tamika Marrow. She's owner of Marrow and Associates. So, Dr. Marrow, tell us a little bit about your story, because I think it is one that um, speaks to how some federal workers are being able to find success on the other side of federal employment, especially after losing your job, arguably losing part of your identity, and then trying to figure out who you are, and most importantly, how are you going to take care of yourself in a stagnant job market?
Yeah. Um, ooh, why did I get emotional when you said that? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, clearly, it touches on something for you.
It touches because unlike other people, I was prepared actually.
Mhm.
And it makes me sad to hear the sad stories. I actually went back and watched a few interviews, and it makes me sad to hear the story because we were so unprepared. The first time on Valentine's Day in 2025, when I was fired, no warning, just boom, you're fired. Um, and it was a shock. I already was lined up in business, and I had clients, so I was able to kind of up the ante on my business and let people know what happened. So people were supportive of my business and they knew what happened, so they were sending clients my way and business my way. But what is very saddening about what you said is about the people who are being affected by this. And I think it made me emotional because there are people who became homeless, there are people who lost their homes, there are people who lost their livelihood. And I'm just grateful to be on the other side, to have had a backup plan, to where I took the DRP and I went full time in business because I believed in myself and I believed in what I did and my capabilities. And thanks to the government for giving me my skills, and which most people don't do when they have a job. They don't take that on the outside and get paid for it. So I'm very grateful for having that knowledge to do that. So my story started in 2025, being fired, and then taking the DRP. April, I became a full-time business owner. Boom. I'm out there in the market. There had been times when it got really, really hard, and I was looking for a job because I'm like, okay, I have to pay employees, I have to maintain my lifestyle, and then I have two kids in college.
Yeah.
So how is that going to work when you're just depending on invoices to be paid, and your faith? And so for me, it was like, okay, let me go and see what the job market is about. When I say I've never had a problem with finding a job or getting promoted, or being able to maneuver through the job market, this is the first time I've never got one phone call back, not even an email. So I can just imagine the other people who don't have a backup plan, or who are not successful in business or anything to do after this thing happened. So that's where I'm at. It's very sad, and I didn't even think I was going to get emotional, but it made me that way.
So tell me about your federal service. What agency were you with, and what were you doing, and how long were you
So
there for?
I was a program specialist at the time.
Mhm.
When the administration came in and changed everything, I was a program specialist for the Federal Highway Administration through the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation is where I spent most of my career the last 10 years. I started off at the General Services Administration, but Department of Transportation was my home. It was the job where I thought I was going to retire from, that, this is it. I can stay here. I'm comfortable where I am. I know all of the systems. Like, I've mastered the systems. Like, you mentioned this system, that system, you're going to get hired just like that. And so never did I have ever imagined that it was going to be that. So yeah, shout out to the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. Before I became an actual federal employee, I had over 17 years of both contractor and federal services. Yeah.
It's clear you still miss them a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, when you got the notice that your job was going to be eliminated, that you were going to be included in the reductions in force, what was going through your mind at that point?
Well, this is the thing. They did not say that, right? When the judge made the ruling to bring us back for being wrongfully terminated,
Hmm.
they had us in the building for about 2 weeks. And then the agency actually offered us the deferred resignation program. So they did not say it verbatim that the reduction in force was going to be a part of it, but you were fearful that it would be because then you had to compare, well, if I get riffed, the pay or the severance that they're offering is not nearly as much as what I would get if I took the deferred resignation, which is the next 6 to 7 months of pay. So they did not say it, but they did not tell us that we weren't. They left it to be our choice, which was a very, very hostile environment to be in because now you don't know who to trust. You don't know if your supervisor is just trying to make you feel safe or if they're trying to play a joke on you so that you can be the one to lead and have people who they actually want. And we know in politics, we're not going to get too deep in that, but there were new people who came on and then there were people who were there that wasn't there before I left. So I'm like, well, what's going on? So it kind of was a fear tactic for me. And I did not want to play that game. So I went ahead and put it in and that's why I am where I am now.
Um,
Yeah,
and so you took the DRP but you already had your own business
I
prior
did.
to you
I
leaving.
did.
What was that? What is that business?
So, Marrow and Associates, we are a firm that provides business consultancy. Back then, we were just helping startup businesses with their business plans, making sure that they get their LLC, corporations, and everything, and then also helping them on the government contract side. But since now I've been off almost a year now, I've been able to expand that to leadership development, workforce development. Now, also writing a book to help people who don't even know where to start, how to even create a 5 month income, a 5 figure income. It's that's even foreign to people outside of having a job, of not being able to have a 5 figure month. So now we're strategizing with people to use their skills and their abilities to create revenue. And that's how my business has really gotten the scale of clients that we have because we're actually providing solutions to the unemployment problem.
Have you been able to replace the income that you would have made with the federal government on your own now?
Absolutely, I've exceeded it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's huge for you.
Yeah, that's huge for me,
That's huge for
which
you.
also tells me that God has a plan for us. And sometimes not everything that's bad that happens to you is to hurt you or to damage you. Sometimes it's actually pushing you into what you're supposed to be doing. And I feel like that was for me, but for the many people who don't have that, it's they're not so fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think your story says to others? There's so many others out there that don't have a backup plan, so many others that don't have a business that they're also working with in conjunction with their primary job right now. What do you think your story says to them?
My story says that there's hope outside of a job, and also to make sure that we actually have a backup plan because in this day and time, we just never know. Right now, living in the world of AI has taken over a lot of jobs. So unemployment rates are going to even get higher than what it is right now, just due to that portion. We're going to have to find ways to make revenue to compete with the computer. And that's sad. So my story would tell you to utilize the skills that you have to create revenue for yourself outside of a job.
Mhm.
And that's the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
Mhm. Um, Looking back on your experience last year, the uncertainty, the identity that you were sort of having to wrestle with too, no longer being in the federal service, which is people traditionally look at it as a secure, good job, and not having that. Um, when you consider all of that, looking back is always 2020. What would you tell yourself then that you've learned now on the other side of it?
That nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent, not even the most secure job from your country. And that you have to be prepared at all times for anything.
Oh,
And mm, that you can make it. That outside of anything that the adversary throws your way, you can make it. Never think that this is my only option. And to
crazy to
get
know that.
out of the mindset of thinking that a job is going to to do it for you in your life. And I'm not telling people that a job is not what you should be doing. I'm just saying have a backup plan.
Our thanks to Tamika Marrow for her time. Meantime, Dietrich knows what it's like to have a treasured career taken from you. He understands it well. After his career with USAID, an international aid organization, came to an abrupt end, but he pivoted, tapping into himself and lifting up others along the way. Dietrich, good to see you, Kyle.
Nice to see you, Larry.
Kyle, talk to me a little bit about your story here. Worked for USAID, and after getting let go, like so many did, you decided to do something special.
We did. Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. So I was leading a team in the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance at USAID, which is the largest bureau was, and leading a training and learning team. I had to fire 40 of my team members, and then I had to fire myself. It was a quick series of events. And so I'm also a coach in addition to my background in humanitarian assistance and peace building. And looking at this, initially it was USAID, but really rippled out into all the federal agencies, contractors, nonprofits, kind of researchers and universities, park rangers. I mean, we could talk about the effect far and wide. Millions of people have lost their jobs as a result of these cuts and these rifts. We looked at how we could help people in a state of free fall, essentially people in unexpected, disruption, unemployment. And as a coach, I just wanted to give back and help people stabilize, really process the grief, think about their skills, their strengths, their vision for their lives in a safe space, in a confidential space. And so, in this period when I was furloughed before I was let go formally in February of last year, I just put up a simple Google form on LinkedIn and said, are there coaches that would be willing to raise their hand and support displaced federal workers and public servants? And over 3,000 responded. Wow. Because they wanted to be of service and they wanted to help people. And so since then we can talk more about all the things we've built, but it was really just a crisis response. As a humanitarian, that's the reality of much of my career, is responding to crises, finding ways to stabilize communities and help them in transition. And we did the same thing for workers who've really dedicated their lives to the public good.
Yeah, you must have been overwhelmed by the response that you received on LinkedIn.
Totally overwhelmed. Yeah. But again, I mean, both sides. The coaches, I think, wanted to be part of something that felt almost like an antidote to the moment that we were all living in. A lot of us felt this, let's be honest, without being political, sense of cruelty, targeting people who had lost their, who were dedicating their lives to serving the greater good. These were educators, these are NASA aerospace engineers, right? These are judges, these are ambassadors. I mean, really senior people who've lived their lives within systems based on certain principles and things that help us all. And so coaches, I think, inherently get this, and their servants as well in their work, and they wanted to give back and help people. And the mission of our work is really simple. It's to help these people, these change makers, these frontline public servants continue serving. Because the risk is when the public service and the social sector contract, that all of these individuals don't know where to go and how to use their skills. And if they pivot away from their purpose, then they're going to live a life that's fundamentally misaligned with their values, with their strengths, with their gifts. And so, yeah, thousands of coaches and then the thousands of workers. I mean, every week we would have hundreds and hundreds of people. And it would be AmeriCorps, and then it was Peace Corps, and then it was Consumer Financial Protection, and then you would see in the news, and then you would see in our sign-up sheet the people who were just in desperation. Again, these aren't mostly junior folks. These are people who were mid-senior level careers who suddenly were having to look at, wait, what am I worth? Right. My identity is being attacked, not just my job, but the entire sector I've dedicated myself to learning and studying and working in doesn't exist, and so they didn't know who they were. They needed different levels of support. And for us, coaching has been one of the highest returns on investment for helping these people get back on their feet, find new jobs, clarify who they are, and really come from a place of grounded, resourced, possibility, not scarcity and fear.
All right, and so you have this organization now, Grounded Idealists.
Yep, Grounded Idealists.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot in a name.
Yep.
Like, give me the genesis of the name. Clearly, there's some roots there.
Yeah, roots is the word, right? So, I mean, I would invite people listening to think about what that means for you, because for us, it's about grounding in ourselves. It's about grounding in really just cultivating stillness, restoring ourselves, repairing ourselves, so that whatever we build to next right? Which is where the idealism comes from. Idealism is we all live in a sense of possibility. We all live in a place of hopes and dreams, and that's where this sense of flourishing and becoming, but we also have to do it from a place of deep grounding. Because if we're living up and out of our bodies and just like and not resourced for the journey ahead, then the journey often ends up in burnout, right, and stress, and lots of things that are ultimately unsustainable. And at a time of, again, this collective trauma, which is how we look at this moment, people need to be resourced and they need to be more grounded in themselves. And so that can mean understanding their nervous systems and how to downregulate, how to understand, you know, what fight or flight looks like, what grief looks like, how to process, because this is a form of grief. If you've dedicated your life to doing a certain kind of work that suddenly no longer exists, that purpose that you have cultivated, which I think is a form of love, that thing that you pour that service and love into, it suddenly no longer exists. Just like a person in your life, if you lose a loved one, that spring of love no longer has a person to go to, you feel grief. And that's what grief is, it's unexpressed love. It's the same for work. And people who live lives of service are literally embodying their purpose with their life. Their deeds are who they are, and if they no longer have a place to pour their deeds into, they suddenly feel a sense of loss and stuckness. And so we try to help people get unstuck by grounding. But also it's a chance, like every disruption creates cracks that create openings for new growth. And so for us, we're really trying to help people understand, like, what if we hit refresh on our dreams? What are my dreams now? Right? Was I implementing expired dreams with my last job? Was I actually really happy? And this is the question we ask. And a lot of people weren't. But when something's taken away from you, we romanticize it.
Yeah, you really are sort of confronted with yourself in maybe ways you hadn't had to really confront yourself because you were comfortable and you were stable at that time.
That's right. We didn't question. And now all of a sudden the carpet's pulled out from under you. You're in a state of free fall. But it's a chance to reimagine and reconsider. And if you do that from a place that's possibility-based and not scarcity-based, we strongly believe that we can create even better people and better systems and institutions, right? By helping the people who go into them, you know, operate from a different place of deep leadership capacity and commitment, continued commitment to their service and mission.
So for the people that have signed up to be a part of Grounded Idealist, you're providing this coaching, and sort of really, what does that all entail? It seems like you're really trying to focus on like the whole person.
That's right. Yeah, I think particularly now, so beyond coaching, we offer coaching as kind of like a triage, right? People come in, they need to be held. It's almost a safety net to catch people. And then we help them go through a series of experiential learning events, because people obviously need to figure out how to use AI and to optimize their job search, but they also need to figure out who they are, what their skills, their values, their strengths, my core beliefs, and how are my limiting beliefs affecting how I look at my life. And so we work at very deep levels we call inner development with people, so that the transformation that we seek to effect through our work comes from a place of inner transformation, right? So that what we are doing is more embodied and ultimately coherent within our job.
Are people receiving that? I mean, at a time of crisis, right? If I'm having to come down off of that sort of high of like me having to have this sort of rapid response, do you find that people are still open to sort of having these sort of existential questions being asked and providing sort of substantive answers in response?
I think the greatest gift we can often give people, and this is not just true for my work, is receiving people fully, right? The people we are drawn to most in our lives are the people that receive us fully, all of our complexity and our messiness. And right now, we have a community of thousands of people who are going through a similar experience where they get it. And so the ability to work with a coach or to be in a cohort-based learning experience with other people who are going through similar stages, it's essentially stages of grief and loss and disruption and transition. I think, look, people, you know, a lot of the folks that we work with are operating from a very high stage of like performance and productivity with their lives that are driven by missions and service and all of these very important things. And now all of a sudden they have to think about meeting basic needs, right? Before it was about how do I more effectively help this community in need through health, education, agriculture, whatever the issue is. And now all of a sudden they have to reflect back on their own lives and think about who am I and how do I pay my mortgage? How do I pay my kids' tuition? How do I get health care? Right? And my own team, to be like vulnerable and honest, we were unemployed and working at this for free for 6 months. We were volunteers. We didn't have salaries. We were trying to help people, but also take care of ourselves, because we're not just creators of this, we're users of the experience, because we're also furloughed, displaced workers. But to your question, I think people appreciate both. They want us to help them like optimize their job search, do resumes, work with recruiters, understand LinkedIn, how to network effectively, and they also want to rebuild their purpose and clarify their sense of agency and confidence in the process that they're going through, which nobody expected, right? This is all very unexpected, sudden, abrupt transition. And so I think it's bringing the both and into like helping them like scratch the itch and make them feel effective and productive in their job search. And many have found jobs. Many have created their own businesses, because we started an incubator that helped people transition from public service into social entrepreneurship. Because when you look realistically at the economy and the market right now, there aren't enough jobs for everybody. And so if my indicator of success is people get jobs, I'm going to fail. Because, I think 50,000 households in the DMV are affected by this. And that's an insane number. And so we can't guarantee everybody jobs. And so we're trying to help some people create the thing that we need, because all the issues that we were working on continue to be complex social challenges that our society is facing. And now we have fewer people on the front lines dealing with them. And so we need to create other pathways for those people to serve. And so part of that needs to come by creating new nonprofits, businesses, consultancies, social movements, anything. And so we're trying to, again, it's all about helping people continue serving, and like what are the skills to, if they want to get a job, what are the pathways to connect them to new sectors, and how do they translate their skills if they want to be an entrepreneur, how to connect them to those opportunities. But it's complex. It's a very complex emotional time for a lot of people.
What has it been like for you? You've been on the sort of in this really interesting spot of, giving birth and life to this organization, also taking care of yourself in all of this as well. And I'd imagine that there is a part of you that also had to sort of wrestle with a lot of the same questions that you're asking others to answer.
It's a hell of a time to start a nonprofit. Like when you're going through your own like acute and collective trauma, your own grief. I've worked 25 years in this sector of implementing U.S. aid programs around the world. I've worked in Haiti after the earthquake for 2.5 years doing humanitarian assistance. I've worked in civil wars and famines. And so I understand the value of this work, and also how it really elevates the global public opinion of what the United States is. We are the front line of U.S. foreign policy, right? We are the voice of American values in the kind of one-on-one interaction. I was in the Peace Corps in Turkmenistan and did this. So this work isn't a hobby or a nice thing to do. This is my life. And so when suddenly I'm affected by, we all live based on this assumption that certain things will hold constant in the future, right? And then when that thing changes, you have a contracted sense of future self. So you no longer live in the same way with the same sense of safety and security and possibility and hope. And the world obviously has been through many disruptions. Like we've been through 9/11, we've been through lots of things, George Floyd, that fundamentally force us to reconsider how we engage in our lives. And so, look, for me, it's been hard. Like I'm a single dad. Trying to figure out how to make ends meet. I've been in DC a long time, off and on since the late 90s. Like to see the effect that this has on the city that I love and care about and my daughter's raised in, and what it means for the future of, because it's not just me, right? I've been in this field a long time. It's all the people that I'm able to be a role model for that are gonna do this and carry this work even beyond what I was able to do in the future, now are lacking tens of thousands of role models. It's all the schools that can no longer recruit students because they can't even tell the students that there are jobs at the end of that program, right? There are just so many fundamental disruptions that we don't fully understand. But ultimately, again, kind of philosophically speaking, the way I look at it is like our social contract right now is fraying. We know as a country, we're deeply divided. And if we look at the thing that can help actually make a difference in moving us back to some sort of understanding of mutuality, of shared independence, it's service. The thing that can activate all of us to live more meaningfully in a way that is beyond just my self-interest as a human is by living a life of service. And we talk about that. The military, right? We talk about public servants, local civil servants, a crossing guard is teachers, they're just firefighters, everybody. The thing that makes us who we are is that so many people are called to serve in things that are bigger and greater than just my own self-interest or my family or my community. And so how do we ignite that at the center of these discussions about how we move forward as a society? And so I sit with that a lot, and then I sit and I think about all these hundreds of thousands of people are the ones who had already opted into that reality of living a life of service, and how can I help them continue to serve? And so, so for me I think I've been blessed to be at the heart of a movement that's really helping, and that helps me regenerate and restore and work on the level of my own grief and the difficulties. But it's a journey, man, up and down every day. Yeah. Like I have beautiful team members, I have advisors and consultants and thousands of coaches whose love I receive every day, and that helps me keep going.
If people want to get connected with you, your organization, if they need a helping hand, what should they do?
Yeah, there are so many ways to get involved, and also just to name that we are part of an ecosystem of organizations, and you, and I want to honor you, have been one of the voices that's been elevating and featuring so many of their good works in a time that we're sort of looking for things and how to support people. So our organization, groundedidealist.co is our website. We are, if you're a displaced worker, we have lots of resources. We have workshops, we have coaching, we have an incubator, we have tons of partners and lots of things that really receive people, cultivate, support, and help people get where they need to go. We also, to be honest, we're always looking for partners. We partner with the mayor of Washington, D.C. on a project called Talent Capital. Oh, cool. And so this is a way that we can bring, if you're a DMV resident, we can offer the coaching services for free through the partnership with Talent Capital and Mayor Bowser. But we have lots of partnerships with universities. We're working with local and state governments. And so if we don't have the answer, we have lots of people who support. But we're also looking for partners and funders, because as a startup nonprofit, obviously the future is unwritten, and we're trying to build something that isn't a flash in the pan, but is really going to support people over the long term. I think local businesses, and whether they're big or small, need to understand the impact that this is having on the DC economy. The school year is going to end in a couple months. What's the effect going to be when there are tens of thousands of people who suddenly still don't have a job? Because based on the data that I'm seeing, it's something like 68% of people who lost their jobs last year in 2025 still don't have jobs. Yeah. Are they going to choose to stay in a city that's expensive, or are they going to move somewhere? And so we need businesses, foundations, others to invest in our workforce, because we have this incredibly talented, dedicated workforce, really good people. And so we're one component of this bigger ecosystem, and just looking for ways to continue to be of service. All right.
Kyle Dietrich, Grounded Idealist. I love the name, Kyle. It's a really good name.
Thanks, Larry.
All right. Thank you so much. You can count on WUSA 9 to stay on top of the reductions to the workforce, those affected, and what it means for our communities. In the meantime, scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you to a special section of WUSA9.com dedicated to our coverage of this story. And of course, we'll keep you updated right here on federal workforce fallout. We appreciate you being here. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.
You've learned a lot in life, on the job, in the military, raising a family. At Prince George's Community College, that experience can count as college credit. You could earn up to 15 college credits towards your degree just for what you already know. Eligible Prince George's County grads can even attend tuition-free with the Promise Scholarship. So what's your game plan? Turn your journey into a degree at Prince George's Community College.